good to be here. Thanks. I'd like to thank for being invited here. We were awarded, our Heaton Ranch was awarded the Leopold Stewardship Award, which was a really good honor to be even considered for it, and to win it was really, really an honor. And a couple things that I was thinking about before we start here. John and Alexandra in their programs that they had this morning are a lot of things that they talked about are things that we've done and we've talked about, and with that part, we've apparently done a few things right on our ranch there. So as we move forward, and actually, if my hair wasn't quite so white, I would tell y'all I went to high school with them too. It'll kind of start with Heaton Ranches, and then we'll go to the history of the ranch. And this is a picture of one of our ranches here. You can see the nice green grass, and it's very, very pretty. We'll start with a little introduction and an overview of the ranch. There's about 4 things that I'd like to go over. One, I'll give you a quick history of our ranch. Then we'll talk about the growth on the ranch, and we'll talk about the conservation practices on the ranch that helped us with the growth. And then we'll talk about a little bit about the technology on the ranch. And at the end, towards the end, then there will be a little video that was put together for the Leopold Award that will be played. The history of the ranch, my great-grandfather was a farmer in Iowa, and in the 20s, land prices got pretty high all across the country, North Dakota included. He wasn't able to buy any land in Iowa, really, so he came to North Dakota and bought 2 quarters of land in the 20s. Didn't really farm it. We've owned it now since 1926, which is 99 years now, and it's the place that I live on today, the home ranch there. And my grandfather was my great-grandfather passed it on to his 2 sons, which one of them was my grandfather. And they came to, he lived in Arkansas on a little farm, and we'll kind of give you a little history about, this is my grandfather and grandmother and my father and his cousin. Here's a Studebaker truck. This is probably somewhere in the 40s. They would come up from Iowa. They would plant the crop in the spring in North Dakota, and then not Iowa, they actually live in Arkansas, but they would plant the crop in North Dakota in the spring. They would go back to Arkansas for the summer, and then they would come back and harvest in the fall. They didn't fertilize, they didn't spray, so there really wasn't a lot of reason to be here in the summer. My father bought a quarter of land from his uncle when he was in the Navy, and then when he came back after that in the late 40s, him and my mother moved on to the ranch at McKinsey. This is where I grew up. My sister and I and my parents were in this, they moved on to the place. There was very little, there was actually nothing there. It was almost like homesteading, I would say. And this is where they lived for several years. They would pull the trailer to one of the towns. They spent one winter in Bismarck and one in McKinsey, and then moved back out there in the summer. And they gradually built the place into part of what it is today. Oops. Here's a picture of that's a John Deere D you saw in the truck. That's my father on there plowing a little piece of land for the garden there by where the homestead is. A little bit of history about the area out there around McKinsey. This is my grandfather running one of these cats. This is probably in the 40s. It was after the war of World War I, and this is on the Irwin Anderson Ranch there at McKinsey. That was the only bonanza farm in Burleigh County. And here's 2 Holt combines running there. That they're both the same combines, and my grandfather's running one of them on that same bonanza farm there. And actually, my grandfather and father bought one of these combines and used it on their ranch, and just another little fact, that combine is still out in my unused machinery pile, and I don't know if Jerry Doan is here, but his family's got the other one out in their unused equipment line. Some of the things that I'd like to talk about a little bit, my parents started there with 160 acres, and by the time I graduated from college and came back to the ranch, they were operating and owned about 900 acres. Then after that, my sister and I are partners, and from that point in the 70s, we've grown the ranch to where we're at about 20,000 acres today. We have about 14,000 acres of rangeland and 6,000 acres of cropland. My father passed away in 1993, so I got the chance to try to manage the place. I was an adult, but I was fairly young, and it was a lot of things to learn as I moved along. I had a lot of help with our operation. Some of the people I'd like to thank, there's some mentors I had. Jay Fuhrer was one. The late Kenneth Miller was the other one. The North Dakota Grazeland Coalition, what I've been a member of for quite a while, it's been helpful in learning things that have to do with growth, profitability, together with conservation. And I tried to think about the conservation part as something that we use that creates growth and profit, and it has a positive effect on our land and the future use of it. The other people I'd thank, the North Dakota Game and Fish with the Plots program was nominated our ranch for the Leopold Award. Our NRCS offices, lots of other people along the way, a lot of neighbors that have been very helpful when you need something. It's always good to have a backup. Excuse me. Then we'll kind of move on to the growth. Like I said, when I got back out of when I came back from college and came back to the ranch, that was the beginning of the late 70s, and we went through the egg depression of the 80s. It was hard to really expand or do anything very profitable during the 80s with the egg crisis. So we're in kind of a stagnant mode across most of this area of the country till things kind of broke off. We got better markets in the 90s. Then we moved forward and started purchasing some of the land, growing our operation. Then we started about that same time, we started doing a lot of conservation growth practices. With some of it was switching from any kind of summer fallow and fall tillage to no-till farming, and all these things took a little time, but they were well worth the effort. On our cattle side, we started using more rotational grazing instead of near season-long grazing that we had used before. We changed a lot of other things, like our calving date. We used to calve in February, March, thinking we would be done calving in time to do the spring planting, which was probably the worst thing we could have done, because about that time is when the weather was bad. You couldn't get your cows and calves out onto fresh grass, so you spent all your time working with them, so you didn't get the crop planted anyway. Then we learned how to use a lot of electric fence, making more paddocks on our ranches. We probably have about somewhere, I haven't counted, but we have somewhere between 100 and 200 pastures on our ranches, and we still have a long ways to go on some of them. We do have 3 ranches. One of our ranches is here in Burleigh County. That's our main ranch where most of the farming's done. And we have another ranch on the Morton-Grant County line, and then one out in the Badlands of Bowman County. They're all really different ranches, which took a lot of different management. The grasses are different. The weather is quite a bit different when you get far out west. lots of challenges, but it did give us. Of course, there's never been a year that everything has gone right on all three of them ranches. So we have, but I do have a lot of flexibility in moving forage or cattle from one place to the other. If we have a fire, if we have drought, if we have too much rain somewhere, too much production at one place, it gives us a good backup plan for, we have a plan A, a plan B, C, D, and on down the line. Then we can kind of move on to some of our this conservation practice. Here's the setup we did. It's got actually this was purchased, but there's a solar well on it that we improved there, and you can see our cattle herd there in the background. We do a lot of dividing up of what was larger pastures. This pasture, when I got it, was a full section of grass, and we turned it into like first 6 pastures, then we added some more to it. So it's a growth and kind of a growth in progress. Here's this picture was taken a little over a week ago, I guess. These are cows out grazing in one of our cornfields. This is over by McKinsey. There's about 350 head of cows out there. We don't feed them. They're doing well on that. They've got access to shelter if we need to, close to the homestead there. So, just a quick math on that. There's on those 350 cows, the feed cost is probably about $2 a day. That's $700 a day. You just multiply the 350 cows times $2, that amounts to a substantial amount of dollars, which is really a big growth on our operation. Here's how we move our cows from one cornfield to the other. They still know what a bale is, so I've got the front end loader with a bale on it, and you can see they're trotting down the road pretty fast, and it won't take them long to get to the next cornfield. And I may or may not give them the bale, depends on how fast they go. And I talk a little bit about conservation. This is a little off subject. This is a piece of land out in Bowman County. It's close to it's on the breaks of the Little Missouri River there, and there's a grassy slope that runs up that top of that bluff up there, and then there's a big cliff underneath it. And the invitation to anybody here, I'm trying to learn how to hang glide someday, and that's about a 200-foot drop off there. So if anybody here is interested in that, come see me after we're done here, because I do need a mentor on that. It's just another picture of and I also kind of fancy myself to be a amateur photographer. Of course, all of us now with the cell phone, we can be pretty good at that. So I take a lot of landscape pictures and a lot of pictures of wildlife, and I got a few of them along here. We have an awful lot of wildlife on our ranch, and one of the things that I think, well, I know that our conservation practices have increased our wildlife multiple times. Maybe 10 times on a lot of things. We've got big diversity, and even here's a cow moose with she's got 2 calves with her. This is out on one of my soybean fields here, and when I was younger. Over here in Burleigh County, if I saw one moose on our place in 40 years, that was it. Now we see them every year, multiple times. There's quite a few, and when I think about it, I think wildlife they go where they want to go. They go where the easiest place for them to live is. So I believe wildlife is a way that shows that you've done something right, because they want to be there. That's another picture. Here's a little family of turtles on a rock. These are my little lawn friends here. They like to look at people. Lots of deer in the growth. Here's a picture of a little antelope. Look how well nature has given the coloring of that little antelope there to fit in with its surrounding on there. It's really pretty. And of course we got an owl, and a couple more moose here in a harvested cornfield. Here's a larger moose in an unharvested cornfield. And here's a couple of mule deer bucks that they're trying to stay in the shady part of the summer there, and the one's going to have to move pretty quick because sunlight's moved a little bit. He's going to have to go over by his buddy. The next thing I'd like to talk about is technology. A couple things we're doing on our ranch now is we did a project on CO2 and carbon sequestration on the ranch at McKinsey. This was run by the Dr. Rebecca Phillips out of Ecological Insights, and it was funded by the North Dakota Resource Trust. Is a project that has set up some really sophisticated equipment, sensors. We've had some tours. A lot of you probably have been there and seen it, but it's kind of an interesting project. We set up 4 paddocks and 4 small paddocks that we're supposed to graze about 100. We'll graze about 150 cow-calf pairs on them for 1 to 2 days, depending on what it takes to get about 50% of the forage removal off of those paddocks. It's got a lot of data in it in real time. It's really interesting, not only the carbon part of the sequestration, where you can see the eddy fluxes where the carbon, where the CO2 will actually go into the soil, when the plants are in the growth mode, and then like at night, you'll see some that will escape back out. It's real time. The graph runs up and down. It's a really interesting project. We also learned a lot about cattle behavior. A lot of things I thought I knew are a little different than what I thought. The grazing amounts that cattle do varies tremendously with the weather. Whether you have rainy weather, whether you have hot weather, whether you have windy weather, it all changes. And the same with the sunlight and your CO2 sequestration. It varies a lot with the weather. And this is a little graph that Dr. Phillips had put together. You can see on the left there, you start out with the carbon in part. What goes into the soil? Then you've got the next one, which shows what's been taken off with your grazing, which you subtract from the first number. Then you add in the waste deposit, and you come up with the number there on the right side. I'm not a scientist, but it was a really interesting project, and there were a lot of other things that we learned about forage production and regrowth. That didn't really involve carbon, but it's all been really interesting. Okay, then the next thing up, there's a irrigation project that it started already. Okay, I'll let you watch it. I'll just tell you if you watch, you'll see each individual nozzle will turn on and off depending on how I've drawn the map for it. It's all automatic. It's run off my phone. I'll talk a little bit more after it's done. You'll see how they shut themselves off.
So it looks like those shut off. These will go any minute.
You can go down closer if you want. And it shut off all the way down.
I think I can. As long as I see these go. Since I've been recording these mostly. There goes that one. This one should go any minute.
It needs to be adjusted a little bit.
How close can you get down to like the foot?
I don't know, you draw a map around it, but I think there's a way you can do it each one.
Yeah.
The one guy come out and that's how he set that one over there. I haven't figured that out yet. I haven't time
There that one went. God, that's cool.
What's cool is you can make it run up to 100%,
Right.
shut off 20%, 30%, whatever you want.
Once these two in front of us turn off, we can call it good. There that one went.
The other pivot has 8 million gallons.
That's
They
this.
haven't run very much since that.
That's the season.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Holy.
Dang.
just.
There it goes.
Speeds are running.
Thanks. There's two reasons that I that I wanted you all to see this video. One is obviously the technology that is out there for this. We put this on 2 pivots. We 2025 will be the first full season using these. I suspect, and my hope is that we're going to have a 20% decrease in water use and a 20% increase in yield. And I think we can get that because we have the one quarter that the pivot is on. When you draw the map out and look at it, there's about 30% of that acres on that piece that wouldn't require 100% water. It would be anywhere from 0 to 80% or whatever. And one of the nice things about these, it's you just draw the map around there of what you want. 0 water put on. The next spot around there that's semi-wet, you may want to put 25% of the water on. You just set that for that. It pulsates on those ones that want to be between 0 and 100%, so you can get infinite amount of ranges, whatever you want. Then we'll also follow this up with we use variable rate seeding on our corn for the planting. The corners of those sandy fields there, we may only plant 14,000 plants, and when we move over into some of the better soils where the water will be put on, will be probably up to 35,000 plants. And then on we also do the variable rate fertilizer. So it's really simple. They just draw up a map on that and have a thumb drive made up. They put it in their spreader, and you can have a whatever rate you want put on those fields. And the second reason I wanted to talk a little bit about that is, we're working hard with our rangeland, trying to increase the value of it as compared to cropland, and we need to think of ways to use technology to increase the value of our rangeland so it can stay competitive with cropland. And some of the things that I've thought about, and we're going to probably do, virtual fencing is probably one. We can probably do a lot of our subdivisions into our small paddocks using the existing water we've already got. All you have to do is take your laptop out and draw a little map around what you want to graze for, that day or 2 days or 3 days or however you want it. That would be one way we can probably try to gain a little bit of competitiveness, because the technology on the farming side of agriculture has gotten so far ahead of rangeland technology. And the other thing besides that, there are other things with our grazing management, our rotations, With once we understand how to use satellite technology, infrared, there's a whole lot of tools out there that we can probably use that would, rather than me having to go out and try to look over 14,000 acres of rangeland and visually view it to see whether I need to have those cows moved today, tomorrow, whatever. I can get a lot of help by using satellite imagery, and the technology in the satellite imagery, just in the last few years, the accuracy and the visual, being able to see a smaller space in real clarity has really improved a lot. And those are a couple things that I think we can use on our rangeland to help increase the, how valuable it is to it, And the other thing I'll talk about rangeland, when I've bought some rangeland before, and there isn't a, at least I haven't seen anyway, when a piece of land comes up for sale, realtor has or something, they'll tell you something about, what the PI index is going to be, but they're using soil maps and things, but they don't tell me what the organic matter is. If you told me what the organic matter of this rangeland over here is 6%, and this land over here is only 3%, even though they might be priced the same, we all know that the one with the 6% is going to give us a lot more return than the one with 3%. So there's a lot of things that we have to learn yet as we go forward. Could we play the conservation award next then? I grew up here. This was a place that my parents came to in the 40s. This particular piece of land here was owned by my great-great-grandfather from 1926. When I got out of college, I came back to the ranch here and started working. We farm and ranch, and we've grown probably each year as we went along since the 90s.
I'm Colleen Kershaw. I am Lewis's sister, one and only sister. This is actually the home place, so I was born and raised here. When we first got married, my husband and I lived in Minot for a couple years, and it flooded, so we moved down here and ended up on the home place. It was like 1986. We bought land just kitty corner from the folks' place here.
So I came back here and started working, thinking what I would do in the future, and I just kind of grew into the place here, and started growing it, and then found out it's something that there were some things I was good at, so I stayed. I've had a lot of interest in ranch history, and I've kind of followed, the stories of ranches and how they grew and the things that happened, over. This ranch will be in our family. We're coming up on 98 years now, so it's a long time, several generations. When we talk about regenerative agriculture and what I've seen progressive and how we started, when I was younger, there was a lot of black summerfowl here. A lot of this country was farmed. It was black summerfowl. Like half the acres were summerfowl, and you really didn't see much going on there. No wildlife or anything. And as we progressed, we went to no-till and less black fallow and no-till and then the grazing systems that we've worked on to improve our pastures, and we own 3 different ranches, but we have got some very pristine areas that are very, very beautiful, and we like to make sure that we take care of them and make them look better all the time.
Rotational grazing or cell grazing, we have done that now for quite a few years, and it's really made a difference on the quality of the pastures. Of course, we've had some rain too, but yeah. Yeah, in fact, when I check cattle, I usually try to count. Well, you can't, because you can't see them, because the grass is doing so well. We have some solar panel wells now that I'm so impressed with, And I know that our calves are doing much better when they get well water than they don't have to drink surface water. I believe they are. I think they are in much better shape. The cows and the calves do better. And I think that we cut down on illness too by moving them, you know, especially with scours in the springtime. If you keep moving them, it's much better for the calves.
With the regenerative grazing and the quick grazing time and lots of recovery, you can see the soil does better. You know, the grass comes back faster. You have wildlife when you move your cattle into a pasture early in the spring, and then you take them out, you know, after a week or something, and that pasture grows all year. You have excellent nesting cover for birds at the end of that year, and also for the next spring when you start, you know. So and it traps snow, so you have more moisture, and you know, you have better water quality. There's a whole list of ecological things that are good that happen when you do that. Well, we want to move forward with this land. You know, there's obviously we need to make a living, but we want to make a living doing the best job we can with the land that we know. And as we get more educated in how to manage things, we've learned a lot in the last 30 years, and I'm sure that we'll learn a lot in the next 30 years to take care of the land and make things more productive and also more regenerative, so it's going to be here for, you know, other generations. It's an honor, you know. It means that somebody thought what you did was important enough to be recognized. I just like to thank there's been a lot of people that have helped along the way, where I've got from some of the NRCS and the District Soil Conservation to neighbors, to the people that have worked with me. A lot of research, you know, farmers and ranchers as a profession are really good at sharing their successes with other people. It is an honor to even be considered for the Leopold Award and to actually be awarded it. It is a privilege.
Just a little bit before I close, I kind of thought about what were some of the things that we did that helped us grow to where we are today, and a lot of them are really simple that you've heard before. I kind of listed a few things. One was the calving date. We used to calve early, and we moved that to late April, May. Made everything so much simpler, more efficient. Then the other was the winter feeding costs, you know, and with our corn stalks grazing, that is part of our operation. Sorry. Yeah, once was probably enough, right? The corn stalk grazing is a big part. Usually we can get somewhere between 60 and 90 days. We come off the native grass usually in late October, early November, and most years, if we don't get too much snow, I can go till the end of January at almost zero feed cost. They do pretty well on it. Sometimes we have more stocks left after that, but once the time you get into February, a lot of times we will get a spring thaw, and our clay soil, you know, the hoof penetration on that will get too rough, so we'll have to pull them off. So usually we don't graze past the end of January. The other thing that I think a lot about is, you know, most producers are really good at producing whatever their product is, whether it's grain, livestock, but the marketing part is on the financial end is really important. You know, on the calf prices, a lot of times we will see in just a few weeks, you know, we'll see in the fall when the calves, we'll see $100 a head difference in the price, and some years that's maybe the only profit there is that $100 a head. So things to do about the marketing is one of the things that I've worked hard on is to try to not be forced to sell anything at a certain time. You want to keep that flexibility. Once you have a payment that's coming that's got a hard date on it, you have to be prepared for that before that happens, because if you wait too long, speaking from experience, if you wait too long, usually the market will go the other way from you, and it just makes matters worse. Then the other thing is on the financials. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of bankers, and they've taught me an awful lot to learn things about your return on investment, your return on equity, your leverage position. Those are all things that take a little time to learn. Most bankers are really happy to have you interested enough to know all those things and to look at your balance sheet every year. And you can learn so much from, once you have a history there, you can see the things that work, the things that haven't worked, and then you can make your plans according to that. The other thing that I've always been a real strong advocate of owning your own ag land. It's very expensive to buy land. I've probably never bought any land that was ever considered less value than the appraised value. Always was higher than that. So it's really hard to finance things that are priced above what their actual market is at that day. But in my mind, when I make a land payment, obviously the interest is an expense, but the principal portion of that you are paying is it's like an investment. It's like putting money in your 401k or some other type of investment, and then you have the advantage of that being what can be like a tax deferred account that can be passed on to another generation, as long as you're under the current amount of total dollar amount that can be passed down to your heirs, which is actually pretty large. So it's like a forced savings account almost, and it's something that has really done well for us in the past. The other thing, just a little thing to think about, and I kind of learned this the hard way. I bought some property that was 15 miles away from where I lived. Cattle had to be hauled. Your machinery had to go up and down the road. That's very expensive. Logistics, if you can, the last 2 ranches I purchased are contiguous. The only time that those cattle get on a truck are when they go to market. Then in closing, this picture here, this is my Bowman Ranch is out there in the Hell Creek Formation, and I had a couple of paleontologist guys that came out there and looked around, and they found a few things. And this is a femur bone off a Triceratops, and that's approximately 60 million years old. And that's the same land that I'm farming, or not farming, but ranching on today. So I just want to think about the amount of time that we're here for a producer, which might be between whatever it is, 40, 50, 60 years of your productivity. That is nothing in comparison to what the land has been and will be. So I'd like us to think about, let's take the best care of it that we can while we're here. And that would conclude my presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks.